always believed I was in control of my life. I had worked hard, built a successful career, and enjoyed every luxury money could buy. I lived in a beautiful home, drove a fancy car, and attended elegant parties. I prided myself on my accomplishments and the status I had achieved. Yet, in the pursuit of success, I had learned to ignore the voices of those in need. I walked past beggars on the street without a second thought, dismissing their pleas as a distraction from my busy, important life. I never stopped to consider that my wealth could be used to help others. I thought I was doing just fine, until one day, everything changed. It happened on a cold, gray morning. I had just left an important meeting when I felt a sudden, overwhelming pressure on my chest. One moment I was walking briskly down the busy sidewalk, and the next I collapsed onto the pavement. I remember the shock, the blur of faces as people rushed toward me, and then a sudden darkness that swallowed everything. I felt as if I were falling, drifting away from the life I had known. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I was not in a hospital room or a recovery ward. Instead, I found myself in a place that defied all my understanding, place of searing heat and suffocating darkness. At first, I could not comprehend where I was. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of smoke, and something I could only describe as despair. The sky above was a deep, ominous red, and the ground beneath my feet was cracked and barren, lit intermittently by flickering flames. I soon discovered that I was not alone. Shadows moved in the distance, and I could hear distant wails that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to call out, but my voice came out as a mere whisper, lost in the overwhelming roar of anguish that surrounded me. As I wandered through this terrible landscape, I began to see visions of my past. I saw moments when I had passed by those who needed help, a shivering old man on a cold street, a young mother struggling with her infant, a homeless woman huddled in an alley. Their faces were etched with pain and hopelessness, and I realized that each one of them had reached out for a bit of kindness that I had refused to give. The images cut deep into my soul, and I felt a burning regret for every time I had looked away. It was as if the voices of the suffering were echoing in my mind, each one demanding that I face the truth of my actions. I soon encountered figures in this nightmarish realm who seemed to be tormenting the lost souls around me. Demonic beings with mocking smiles and cruel eyes circled the tormented, their voices dripping with contempt. One demon, its voice cold and scornful, approached me and sneered, "You had everything, and yet you gave nothing." I trembled as the demon's words pierced me like a shard of ice. I tried to speak, to plead for mercy, but the demon only laughed, its sound echoing like a death knell in the barren landscape. I realized then that I was witnessing the fate of those who had turned away from compassion, who had chosen the cold comfort of wealth over the warmth of human kindness. In the midst of this anguish, as I struggled to make sense of my surroundings, a soft light began to emerge from the darkness. It grew steadily until it formed into a gentle, radiant figure who exuded a calm warmth that contrasted sharply with the hellish surroundings. The being's eyes shone with compassion and sorrow as it looked at me with an expression that seemed to say, "I understand your pain." I felt a glimmer of hope in that light, a promise that not all was lost. The figure spoke in a voice that was both tender and firm. "I have come to show you the truth of your life. You have been given blessings, yet you ignored the call to share them with those in need. Your choices have led you to this place of regret." I listened, heart pounding, as the angelic figure continued. "Every time you turned away from a crying soul, every moment you chose comfort over compassion, a part of your light dimmed. Now, you must face the consequences of those choices. But know this, you still have a chance to change." The figure's words stirred something deep within me. I recalled the many times I had been too wrapped up in my own world to see the suffering around me. I remembered the faces of those I had ignored and felt an overwhelming surge of remorse. I fell to my knees, pleading with the luminous being. "Please, tell me how I can make this right. I never meant to cause harm. I was blinded by my own ambition." The gentle light knelt beside me and replied softly, "It is not too late to mend your ways. The pain you see here is the result of neglect, not an irreversible curse. Redemption is always within reach if you are willing to transform your heart. But you must understand that every act of indifference has consequences. You must truly regret your past and vow to live differently. As the words sank in, I felt the full weight of my past transgressions. The visions of the suffering I had ignored replayed before my eyes with every step I had taken in life, each one a stark reminder of the missed opportunities to help those in need. I spent what felt like an eternity in that realm of fire and despair, confronting the truth about my life. The demonic voices and mocking laughter still echoed in the background, but the light remained my constant guide. I was forced to confront not only my actions, but also the deep-seated beliefs that had led me to value material success over human connection. I recalled the days when I had dismissed the poor as insignificant, when I had believed that my hard work and achievements made me superior. Now, faced with the undeniable reality of the suffering I had contributed to, I could no longer hide behind my wealth and status. The journey through that harrowing landscape was not easy. I was forced to relive painful memories and confront the stark reality of the choices I had made. I saw the faces of those I had once ignored, their eyes filled with sorrow and abandonment. I heard their silent pleas for help, and with each passing moment, my heart ached more for the opportunities I had missed. The angelic figure, ever patient and kind, continued to guide me, urging me to accept the responsibility for the life I had led. You must learn that true wealth is not measured by the treasures you accumulate, but by the love and compassion you share with others, the figure said, its voice resonating in the depths of my being. At last, I reached a place where the darkness began to fade, and the flames receded to reveal a narrow path leading upward. The angel explained that this path was the way back, a chance to return to life, reborn with a new understanding of true purpose. I hesitated, filled with both hope and dread. The idea of returning to the world I had left behind was daunting, for it meant facing not only the judgment of others, but also my own inner demons. Yet the promise of redemption, of a chance to atone for my past neglect, gave me the strength to rise. I stepped onto the path, each step an act of repentance and a commitment to change. In the moments before I awoke, the angel's final words echoed in my mind. Remember, every small act of kindness can light the darkness. Live with an open heart, and let your actions be a reflection of the love you now understand. Share your blessings, not to boast, but to heal the wounds of a world in need. Then, in a blinding flash of light, I felt myself being pulled away from that realm, away from the consequences of my past, and back into the world of the living. I awoke in a hospital bed, surrounded by concerned faces and the soft hum of machines. The memory of what I had experienced was as vivid as if it had happened only moments before. I felt a deep, abiding change within me, a sense of responsibility that went far beyond my own comfort and success. I knew that I had been given a second chance, a rare opportunity to rewrite the story of my life. That day, I made a silent vow to myself. I would never again ignore the voices of those in need. Over the following weeks and months, I began to transform my life. I reached out to local charities, visited shelters, and donated time and resources to help those who had been overlooked. I realized that the true measure of my wealth was not in my bank account or the luxurious life I had led, but in the compassion I could offer to others. I started volunteering at a community center, where I met many people whose lives had been touched by poverty and neglect. Their stories were heartbreaking, yet they also filled me with a determination to do better. I listened, learned, and slowly began to rebuild my understanding of what it meant to truly live. There were days when the memories of that fiery realm would come back to haunt me, the mocking laughter of demons, the tearful faces of those I had ignored. But with each reminder, I found renewed strength in the promise of redemption. I learned that change was not an overnight miracle, but a gradual process of healing and growth. I shared my experience with others, not to scare them, but to inspire them to look beyond the superficial trappings of life. I spoke of the importance of empathy, of the need to see the humanity in every person, regardless of their social status or appearance. I became an advocate for kindness and generosity, determined to ensure that no one would suffer the loneliness and despair I had witnessed in that dark realm. Looking back, I realized that my encounter with the other side was a profound lesson in humility and responsibility. I had once thought that my success was proof of my worth, but I now understand that true worth is measured by the love we extend to others. I learned that every act of neglect, no matter how small, contributes to the suffering of those around us. In that moment of reckoning, I was given a chance to redeem myself, a chance to become a better person, and to use my life for the greater good. My life is forever changed by that experience. I now live each day with gratitude and compassion, constantly aware of the fragility of human existence and the importance of caring for one another. I strive to make amends for my past neglect by dedicating time, energy, and resources to those who have been left behind. Every time I see a person in need, I remember the faces from that dark place, and I am reminded of my promise to never again ignore the call for help. I have learned that redemption is not a destination but a lifelong journey, one that requires constant self-reflection, empathy, and the courage to change. In the end, I know that I was given a second chance not as a punishment, but as an opportunity to transform my life and to make a real difference in the world.